Okay, so welcome to Conversations with the Coach. What's your story? I'm Randi Levin. I'm a transitional life strategist and a reinvention expert. And what that means is I don't necessarily coach the story. I coach a lot of emotion behind stories, and I coach editing of one story, if you would. So all those different starts and stops we have in our lives, all those different variables that happen from decade to decade. So we make decisions in our 20s, and then we hit our 30s, and those decisions don't make sense anymore. And then it continues on. We hit our 40s, we hit our 50s, we hit our 60s. Things change. We need to keep editing that story and fixing the agenda just a little bit. And so that's what I basically coach around, the what's next. And there's a lot of what's next. My co-host, Donna Gould, from Open Heart Creative, is a chief storyteller, and she goes about storytelling a completely different way than I do. So Donna, you want to tell everybody a little bit about what you do?
So, as the chief storyteller at Open Heart Creative, I actually have the privilege of working with small business owners and entrepreneurs, helping them tell their business stories. I either say tell their business stories or tell their business stories better, and those who know they want to tell them better know what I'm talking about. I have been a marketing...
Yeah, she's doing fine. She's not a part of this.
Okay, I may have to mute everybody. I'm going to mute everybody for now.
Let's have a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. Donna, go ahead.
Well, and it can't stop either. And we've just got to just stop bleeding. I mean, because this last go around,
guys,
I
whoever's talking,
just get a number on finance. And
of
course, I'm not mentioning it and trying to get her together. And it's just been really bad.
Oh, this has been interesting. Donna, can you hear me? Donna, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Can everybody hear us? Nod.
Nod. Okay.
Good. I unmuted. Finally worked. Yes. It actually works sometimes. It's an interesting. All right. Let's continue on. Donna and I will be talking. If you guys have questions, I will unmute again at some point, but go ahead and type them in the chat section if you have something that you want to chime in, a question or something to add. Donna, hit it.
All right. So I've been a marketing communications specialist my whole career. And part of my story is that I decided at this stage in my life, in my professional life, that I really wanted to focus on doing the things that I love, not the things that I'm necessarily known for or have been successful for in a big banner way in the past. And so I started Open Heart Creative 3.5 years ago with a focus really on copywriting and content strategy, which is my heart's desire. And I actually met Randi, I think, right at the very, very beginning of this journey. And
so it was definitely the beginning of my journey.
Yeah, the beginning of hers. And so we've been sharing our stories pretty much all along for the last 3.5 years. So it's nice to be able to be here with all of you and talk about this a little bit more. I come from the kind of business side of things, and Randi comes from the rest of life kind of things. But they all don't.
But you know it parallels because we're only one person, right? And so our business side and our personal side, oh my gosh, they are the same thing. But we don't really think about it that way. We think about them being separate. So you're going to see how much parallel there really is tonight. So what do we mean when we ask, what's your story? Really, what are we really talking about? Because we think of storybooks and we think of chapters within storybooks and a beginning, a middle, and an end of a story. Donna, would you like to
weigh in?
Weigh in.
Well, so to me, actually, and Randi and I have spoken about this to a large extent. I believe that our story is everything that's happened in our lives up to this very moment in time. And since all those moments are constantly changing, our story is just constantly evolving from one moment to the next. And I think that that's the same whether you're talking about your life story or whether you're a business and you're talking about your brand story. I I have had some conversations with Randy about how I don't believe we're so much in the process of constantly rewriting our stories as we are trying to keep pace with our stories as our lives evolved, and not getting stuck in what our past has been, but sort of trying to live in the moment and live the story as it's happening.
Right. And my take on it, anybody who's read anything I've written or knows anything about my coaching style, it's all about creating legacy, and the ability not to just think about that as something we leave behind, but something that we have the ability to create each and every day. And creating legacy is creating a story. It's carving out what you want this moment in time to be and what you want to take forward with that. Really mindfully doing so, which is a little bit of a tweak on how we think about legacy. So if we're not rewriting it necessarily, it's an evolution, right? It's kind of a turning point. And that the lovely, wonderful thing about that is what it means is that we can keep editing and we can keep tweaking and we can keep changing. And it gives ourselves permission to do so, if you would. If we think of our story as an evolution, it's not over. It's not something that's ended. It's not something that, we're done with, or that we've picked out all the variables of. It's something that we can continue with. So part of that is an ability to be able to let go, right? So in order to be able to get into the story and make some changes to it, it's the editing process, which is what Donna does all the time. And when we think about the concept of editing, anybody who does any kind of writing at all, we're carving out a story based on some elimination, right? Some letting go so that what we leave there makes the most sense and is the best representation. Donna, you have anything to add in particular to that? I'm going to open up the mics again and see what we get when we do that. Well,
brave woman. I totally agree with what Randy's saying, and
You're gonna wear tennis shoes.
I like to think about this as sort of less about editing. You're gonna have to close them again, right? What do you think?
Yeah. Okay.
Everyone?
Yeah. Everybody's muted, you and I.
I like to think about it as kind of turning the page or starting new chapters. Mm-hmm. Our life is continuous and our story is continuous until, we take our last breath. But we are constantly starting new chapters. I saw a great quote, I think, that I recently posted on Facebook that said, "Don't judge me by the chapter that you walked in on." Mm-hmm. And I thought a lot about that, because it's not so much always about other people judging us by the chapter that they see, but the ways in which we judge ourselves by the chapter that we believe that we're in, and that maybe we feel that we're stuck in. There's a concept, Randy and I both know some wonderful young women that do a lot of work around people who have body image issues. And they talk about this thing called radical acceptance. Randy, you know about radical acceptance?
Yeah, generally, yeah.
In the coaching world, they must know about radical acceptance. And basically, it's this concept that we put ourselves in boxes, right? We love to label things as human beings. We all do it, whether we're labeling ourselves or we're labeling other people. But what happens when we label ourselves is if we're the smart one, or we're the skinny one, or we're the tall one, or we're the mom, or we're the, in my case, the marketing director, we tend to take on those labels and strictly identify ourselves by those labels. And I know a lot of us would say, oh, we got stuck in a way we were labeled by a teacher or a parent or a friend. But I think that we do it to ourselves too. And a big part of being able to turn the page and start a new chapter is being able to sort of make your peace with those labels, or keep the things that are still working for you where you are in your life now, and kiss goodbye with lots of love and affection those things that really aren't true for you anymore. And I find this with business owners the same as I'm sure Randi does with her clients. There are a lot of people, particularly people who are wanting to start a new business, or have been in business for a while and are looking to change, but they're having a really hard time sort of moving beyond whatever that label is that they've given themselves or that other people have given them throughout the years, and it's very difficult to move past that.
Right. And one of the things you need to keep in mind with it is in the timeline of your life, you can wear a lot of different hats and have a lot of different labels, and you can have labels concurrently.
Right.
So we don't necessarily have to be this or that. We can marry those two things or three things or four things together. We can be all of those things. And Donna, I'm going to share a personal story at this juncture. When you and I first met, we were trading ideas a lot on different things. I with coaching, Donna with her whole writing process, and was looking at, writing bios and rewriting bios and, putting together speaker sheets and all these things that I now needed in this business, a business I didn't have before, right? So all new stuff. And painstakingly with the bio, what was the bio going to say? And Donna was so sweet. She was trying to let me know that, these labels that I had out there, they kind of I had to identify with them. I had to make peace with them. I had to own them, essentially. And so for me, my whole story is that I was in corporate America for many years. I was a buyer. I was in retailing. And then I switched gears and became a stay-at-home mom, and did that for a really long time before my big comeback trail, which is coaching and reinvention coaching at that. And when it went to write my bio, I was stuck because I can't say I was a stay-at-home mom. Who's going to take me seriously? Like, what is that? And Donna's like, but no, you have this ridiculous skill set. You can do this, this, and this. We need to put together all the things that make you you, why you are vibrant, why this is what you do, why it speaks to you. No, but I can't. Until I could own that, I couldn't write my bio properly. And it took a while. I can't tell you how many bios I've written. Probably more than anything else. It is like a constant. I have folders that say old bios, new bios, bios in progress. I mean, it continues. But the point being is that we have to take ownership of whatever those labels are that we're giving ourselves now. We have to give ourselves a little bit of bandwidth to be able to be all those things and care a little bit less about what the rest of peoplehood thinks about what that label may be or not be versus what we feel it is or what it's brought to us, okay? Because we think other people are spending a lot of time looking in at us and evaluating our stories, and they're not spending nearly the amount of time you think they are evaluating and judging what you're doing and how you're doing it and what part of your story you're in, because they run their stories. They're very busy, okay? So when we look at owning that piece of it, it's the key. And it's really hard. And any of us have come up against, okay, what's next? What am I going to be when I grow up? What am I evolving to? It's really hard because I don't have the skills for that. I have clients all the time that say to me, I can't do that. What do I know about that? Well, what don't you know about that? Why can't you make that happen? What do you have that you bring to that table? And, Donna was absolutely eloquent in trying to get me to pull and pull and pull on that. And it took me a while to be able to even go back to the time I remember. We were sitting at my kitchen table, and I remember it like it was a minute ago, her very eloquently telling me what I needed to do with that, and me saying, oh, no, until, many moons later, I said, hey, well, wait a minute, I am that person, and that's what rocks. That's a big difference. Big difference.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with being open, and we all have our own process for this. It's difficult. I can guide clients, to where they say you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I mean, it all comes in its own time also, and I think you have to be. You have to have a lot of self-awareness, and I think quite honestly you have to be in a place where you're really open to change, so that because it's really this isn't about forgetting everything that's ever happened up to now and, putting it in the past and closing a door. It's really about looking at it, as Randy said earlier, through the lens of who you are today and where you are in your life today, and what it is that you want to do next. So what is it worth taking with you? What parts of that story, first of all, are worth keeping with you and taking into the next chapter? When you read a book and you turn the page, it's not a whole new story. It's a continuation of everything that you were reading up to that point in time, but it always is going to be revealing something new. And in the interest of self-disclosure, to Randy's point, I had my own struggles with sort of allowing myself to redefine myself as who I am and what I want to do and what I'm passionate about right now at this moment in time, and leaving behind all this whole career history that I had that I was very successful at, and people continually ask me to do the things that I used to do, and the truth is I don't really want to do them anymore. I remember looking for jobs as a communication director and going on interviews and literally being nauseous when I would go in and talk to people, because these were jobs that I truly just didn't want to do. Mm-hmm. They made me tired. I'd already done it before. I'd already proven that. I didn't need to prove it anymore. And it just wasn't resonating with me. I used to say I would fall asleep reading the job descriptions, on Indeed.com. I just couldn't get excited about it. But when I thought about writing, and when I thought about the kind of the marketing skills that I bring to the table in helping small business owners and entrepreneurs really kind of get their businesses either up off the ground or move them to the next level, I just would get really excited. I would talk to people and I would hear myself. I wouldn't need the feedback. I know how I felt, and I know what I heard and felt in myself. Mm-hmm. Even knowing that, it was really hard to launch a business where I just said to people, I am a writer. That's what I do, without saying, well, yeah, I can do that and I can do that, or feeling the need to be presenting myself as something bigger than that, bigger, because it felt so small. And of course, the reality is it's not small at all. And it's a big undertaking, and I absolutely love every minute of it. But it really, I still remember that struggle, and it came all the way up to the point in time where I named my business, and when I had to choose a URL. And naming the business Open Heart Creative would have been a lot easier just to say Donna Gould Studio or Donna Gould Marketing. But that being open and really kind of digging deep down to the heart of what it is that you're passionate about and what you really love doing, and helping business owners pull that out and have the courage to speak from that place about what they do, gets me excited to get up every day.
And you know what, a couple of points to what you're making in terms of naming my business. I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth trying to come up with a creative, incredible, memorable name. And I came back to me. And why did I do that? Because this chapter of my story, and I say it just like this too, no pun intended for what we're discussing tonight, this chapter of my story is about me. And so what better name for my business than Randi Levin Coaching? So it really does come back to that ownership piece, to giving yourself permission to step into what that part of your story is. Even if it wasn't the part it was before, or it may not even be the part it's going to be a year from now, but where it is right now, and taking ownership of that. And I'm going to give everybody a little trick phrase right now, and it will work. It will work every time you have an obstacle. It will work every time you have a fear, because what I'm about to tell you, 3 little letters are going to change the way you think about how you're approaching things, okay? So if you have a specific fear, specific obstacle, and you're saying that you can't do something, so I'm going to give you an example, okay? For years, stay-at-home mom. So I was a stay-at-home mom, right? So I was a stay-at-home mom, and that's what I did. How different would my story be if I was a stay-at-home mom and my kids are in school 7-8 hours a day, so I can start my own business? So the second you add the and to whatever story you're telling yourself that may not quite be working for you, you open up the possibility. You add on to it. You give yourself a small piece of it, something to work with. And it will work with every fear and every obstacle. So that's my little gift to you. Try it. See if it works. I'd be interested to know. So get back to me and let me know, anybody who does try that, okay? So we don't allow our stories to unfold. This goes right into it because of fear, right? We tell ourselves all these reasons why we can't do something. We don't know how. It's not the right time. We don't have enough money. Our kids need us. Our spouse needs us. You know, this one wants us to do that. That one wants us to do this. We have aging parents. Whatever that story may be, okay? But when we crouch behind it, we can't open up the opportunity to do what's next and to really step into the story that we most want to tell. So Donna, when you're up against that with a client, how do you get past that in terms of them being able to authentically write into their story, whether it be their bio, whether it be something that you're writing with them, etc.?
Well, so I totally agree with Randy that, you know, this is something that takes tremendous courage. And I do find with clients that part of what we run into is their fear of saying what they really want to say. Mm-hmm. You know, I will say to them, if you could say anything at all, what would you say? They feel there are all these rules. You know, and I know, again, this is something we've learned along the way. And I've done some talks in the past to kind of looking back at how we learned to express ourselves in school. You know, what were the rules of writing? What were the rules of what we could and couldn't say? And, you know, to write a story in today's kind of brand storytelling world, you basically have to unlearn all those rules and kind of start from scratch, because there really are no rules. Certainly not when it comes to storytelling. So I think the first thing is to sort of give my clients permission to forget about the rules, and to, you know, it's just the two of us sitting across the table from each other. If you could say anything you want to say about your business and why you do it, just tell me. Just tell me. And I find that it's much easier for them to tell me than if they were to sit down and try to write it for themselves. You know, I can sort of feed back to them what they've said, and they'll read it and they'll be amazed. You know, they'll be amazed. And then they'll say, the first thing they'll say is, I can't say that. Just like Randy said, I can't say that. And my question back to them is, who says you can't say that?
Right.
Who says you can't?
How you define you is how you define you. And
how you define is how you define you. And you know,
right.
Today, the truth about trying to market a business today is that it is all about creating connection between you and your prospective clients or customers. And the way to do that truly is by being what we call authentic. You hear the word authentic a lot. It's about being real, about being honest. It's about kind of showing up as who you are. And again, I feel sometimes my biggest role with clients is giving them permission to do that. Mm-hmm. You know, as someone who's been around the block for a long time. Right.
They know what they know and don't expand beyond that.
Exactly. You know, I can say to them, listen, you know, who made up that rule? Rules are made to be broken. And here are some ways that we can express ourselves. I have a whole list of, you know, suggestions on if you're actually trying to write, you know, how you might go about doing this. But there's a woman named Anne Hanley who wrote this wonderful book called Everybody Writes. And if I run into people who want to try to write about their business themselves in a storytelling way today, this is the only book I ever recommend, because she just does a wonderful job in a very straightforward, very funny way of just breaking down all the rules. And she says that a compelling brand story is a gift that you give to your audience, because it's a way with you as one person to another. And I think that for business owners, if you think about a single person that you're speaking to, that you're marketing to, who's your kind of ideal dream customer, and you tell them why you do what you do, not who you are or what you do, but why you do it.
Right.
That's what differentiates you from everybody else who's out there doing the same thing. And that's why our clients choose us. You know, they choose us as much because of who we are, and what we're passionate about is what it is that we bring to the table or how good our product is.
I'm so glad you brought up that why concept, because that why concept transcends everything. It's business and it's personal, and it's all about our own sense of purpose, why we do what we do. And, you know, we may, like I said earlier, we may make a choice at 22 or again at a graduate school if this is why we do what we do. You know, we're going to be this. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we are that 20 years later. Or we may, you know, enter into a relationship that works and that doesn't work, but it doesn't hold our definition. We evolve. And so we have to continue to change what that why is and what gives us purpose and what gives us a sense of being. And so it's important to kind of connect back to that without getting caught up in the labels and in where you've been in that part of your story. So like Donna said, we're turning the page on another chapter. The story of you continues on the timeline, but the chapter has to hold our interest because the chapter is going to evolve, right? So what's next on that page? What's the next action thing that happens? Where does the plot go? And we forget about the plot. We just keep doing what we know. So to your point, I think it's really about, you know, what's next in the story.
Yeah, and again, it's sort of, I think I said earlier that everything that we've done up to now is what brought us to this place. And, you know, if we're people of a certain age, there are very intrinsic values that are ingrained in us that really drive everything we do. You know, they drive our lives, and those same values are going to be present in any kind of business that you create. And it's one of the other things I work strongly with clients on is really when you're trying to come up with the language to speak about what it is that you do, you really have to track back to those values that are important to you as a person, you know, as a human being, and the kind of experience you want your clients and customers to have when they interact with you or when they use your product, you know, or what the result of your service is. And I think that those things never change. You know, those are kind of the constants that are the things that you're gonna continue to carry forward, and they don't define you. They more or less inform you and kind of inform everything you do. So, you know, for me, everything I've done up to the time I launched this business, I've been a writer my whole life. I didn't necessarily value my writing, and especially in a business context, I always valued it sort of as a short story writer on the side, or, you know, someone who dreamt up, you know, novels in their sleep. But I've been writing in a business context my entire life. And the reality is that the value, discovering the value was a gift that someone gave to me. Because I was really having a hard time just owning it for myself. And, you know, I had a client who said to me, you know, the beautiful thing about your writing is that no matter whether you're writing like 25 pages or 3 sentences, everything you write is a story. Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And, you know, this is part of the kind of my story behind becoming a storyteller, you know, having the courage to call myself a storyteller and not just a writer. Because, you know, the reality is everybody writes, and a lot of us are really good writers. Not everyone has the ability to storytell, because storytelling involves, as Randi said from the very beginning, a certain amount of editing and a voice. You know, you have your own distinctive voice that I think, again, is hard for a lot of business owners to capture in their marketing. Again, whether it's out of fear or, again, a lot of times, other people can see it and hear it in us better than we can see it and hear it in ourselves. So a lot of times it's just about mirroring it back.
And when we talk about story and we talk about that beginning, that middle, and that end, how often do we all fall into this at some point of overthinking, of writing that ending of a story before we've allowed ourselves to actually live the middle of the story. So we're already at the end. Our fears got in the way. Our what ifs got in the way. We're already telling ourselves, why something can't be a certain way. And we're writing an ending to something without ever living it. So I think we need to be really mindful of how that timeline of our story plays out and allowing ourselves to be in the place that we are, the chapter that we're in, and really being able to maximize that without worrying about the end result. It's like talking about, as I often do, growth and how we have to let ourselves grow versus just having a goal. When we set our minds only to a goal, it's much harder to achieve. It becomes this big mountaintop, very, very hard to get there. But if we look at the growth and we celebrate the growth along the way, that's much, much easier. And one of the ways that I know that Donna does this as well, that I always this time of year get very excited about words, okay? Because we can come up with words that become our words. So here we have a 2017 opportunity, new year, to come up with a couple of words that define what we really want that year to be or what we feel we are going to be in that year. For instance, this particular year we're in was my year of connection. Lots of connections. And one of the big things for me for next year is the year of playing big. And why do both those things marry together? Because I'm going virtual in a very big way. And that's starting right now. And so being connected is connecting more globally, and playing big, obviously, is playing to a wider audience. So those for me are buzzwords. They're how I lead my life as well, personally and professionally. Donna, I know you have a lot of things to talk about in terms of picking our words and how we choose our words. So,
gee, what a surprise that would be, right? Well, so I always say, if our story is what differentiates us, the words that we use to tell the story, of course, are the tools that are at our disposal. And not just because I'm a writer, I truly believe that words carry a tremendous amount of power. Mm-hmm. And Randi and I've talked about this a lot, defining ourselves, using certain words to define ourselves, to me can become, they're like self-fulfilling prophecies in a way. But they carry, when you think about what words, when you read, what words can elicit in you, they can make us laugh, and they can make us cry, and they can make us feel guilty, and they can make us feel joyous. And, just a handful of words can shift your whole perspective. So when you turn that back and you think about the words that you use to describe yourself, again, I think it comes back to that, are we living in our current part of our story, or are we defining ourselves using words that are part of that, a previous part of our lives? And so I was sharing with Randi, there's a young woman, her name is Jamie Ridler. I think her website is Jamie Ridler Studios. And so I always say I never found a great idea that wasn't worth borrowing. So I've borrowed this one from Jamie on numerous occasions. And it's a great exercise to do with clients. So, and we're not going to do it together, but I'm just going to share it with you, and then you can kind of do it on your own. And I think that the idea I've come up with is to do it rather quickly so that you don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. So you take about 60 seconds and you write down 5 words that either you or other people use to describe you and your work. And you just need 5. I mean, you can list more, but 5 is like a nice round number. So words that you or people are currently using to describe you or the work that you do. And then you take another 60 seconds and you list 5 words that you wish people used to describe you and your work. And you don't have to worry about why you wish it. You just make a list of words that, if someone was talking about you, these are the things you wish that they were saying about you or your product or your service. And then what you do is you take that list of 10 words and you kind of go through it. And you don't spend a lot of time on this. And you just put a mark next to the words that feel good to you, or words that excite you, words that kind of feel good or feel like, there's something about that word that I kind of take a liking to. And there can be words on there that maybe are sort of neutral, that kind of, they feel like filler. They don't kind of help you one way or the other. And you can sort of move past those and any of the words that kind of aren't feeling, or that might feel like they're taking you in the wrong direction. And then you just take a pen and you cross off any of the words that just don't work for you. You just put a pen through them, just cross them off. You kiss them goodbye. You let them go. And whatever the words are that are left, those are your power words. For now, for this moment, not forever, but they're your power words for now. And when I do this with clients, our next step is always to start to take those words and incorporate those words into the language that they're using to talk about their business. And it can be very eye-opening, and it's something I recommend you do, every 6 months, or Randy, like we do, we kind of sit down once a year and we sort of evaluate and look at where we are. But these are words that really hold a certain kind of power and a certain kind of magic. I am like Randy. I usually choose one for the year that sort of becomes my touchstone. And sometimes it comes from this list, and sometimes it comes out of left field. I don't know about you, Randy. I know there are a couple websites out there you can go to. I think one's called One Little Word or something. They all have a process and kind of steps you can go through to kind of come up with that word. But I find that it's one of those things that can help you kind of refocus your energy on what's good for you. I know last year my word was balance. I desperately needed balance in my life. And anytime I, kind of reach a point where there's too much going on one way or another, it's a good reminder. I keep a small vision card on my desk with the word on it with some nice images around it. And it's a good reminder on a regular basis.
Well, it also allows us to manifest, which is a huge
yes.
What we put out there, we often get back, and we become very mindful of what that is. And that's kind of the reason why I do vision boarding workshops. It leads people back to being able to create something that they can manifest for what they most want. And a lot of that is words. They'll pull words out of magazines, not just pictures of palm trees and exotic places and what have you that they want to go to, but actual words, or they'll construct their own quote out of something. And it's kind of interesting to see, because those become, as you said, almost like a power mantra, power words to direct what's next in their lives. So it's kind of a way to tell a story in a creative sense, I guess, and in a very different kind of sense when you do the vision boards. It's a whole nother piece of storytelling.
Definitely.
So anything else that we want to add? So I want to try opening those mics again. Here we go. You are That's not working. That's not working. So I'm very sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with this thing tonight. But if anybody has any questions or anything they'd like to add, if you would be so kind as to type it in and we can discuss it. You can type it right into the chat. There's a button on the bottom of your screen. If you haven't seen it, it says chat on the side and it should pop up and you can type. Love to hear anything anybody has to add to anything they've heard tonight. Anything about your own personal stories that you want to share. I can undo individual mics, and I'm more than happy to do that. So if you want to just say raise hand, that would be fine too. We could try that. I don't know where that's coming from. Which one of you, to be honest with you.
Well, I'd just like to share one other thing. I feel that I feel it's very important for us to share our stories with the people around us. Randy, you said before, when I run into a client who's fearful and, how do I help them kind of move past that? Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that the process of us sharing our own stories of our own struggles and our own triumphs, and our own processes is a really powerful tool for inspiring others to do the same and giving other people courage to do the same. You know, when we look at people from the outside, we think everybody's got it all together, but the reality is that
Facebook world.
yeah, it's the Facebook world, exactly. We don't live in a Facebook world, and you know, I've been through so many of the same struggles that my clients have, which I think is why we find each other. You know, and my story resonates with them, and their stories resonate with me, which is why, you know, it's such a wonderful process to be able to work with people to help them really kind of bring that story out into the world. Because I truly believe the more we do that, the more it helps not just us, because we're redefining that story each time that we tell it, or we're having the chance to, because we hear ourselves say it and go, well, I don't know, is that really true? But it empowers other people around us, and we don't even realize it half the time.
No,
we don't.
It also makes us much more authentic and real, because we're relatable, and because everybody's got stuff. Everybody has things they've swept into the closet, and they're not really sure, you know, if they should open the door or not. And the reality is we should. And that's not to say that we all should complain to one another, but at the same time, we all have stories to share and stories to tell that make us dimensional. Okay, so it's not just the good times, it's the good times and the bad times, it's the failures and the successes, it's all of it mixed together. And that's what gets you to today and gets you to the point that you're at, and makes you unique and makes you you. And sometimes we're so busy trying to tell the perfect story that we erase the parts that we don't think somebody wants to hear or needs to know. And very often that's the piece somebody really does need to hear and needs to know, because that's the piece that gives them traction, to know that somebody else, you know, also found it tough, or also found it that they were scaling a wall, you know, when they got to a certain point. Yet we don't share it as readily. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think when we, again, in a business context, one of the most powerful things we can do is share mistakes we've made and what we learned from them, or, you know, issues that we had and how we, you know, sort of dealt with them and tried to overcome them. I think, you know, social media has single-handedly changed the way companies market themselves. There's no doubt about it. And it's, you know, storytelling, whether you're a small company or a big company, is the way we've probably always communicated. But I personally believe that there's a hell of a lot more honesty than there ever used to be in the past when it comes to trying to make it
more acceptable than ever before. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ken has a question. Ken, I'm going to undo your mic if that's okay with you. Let's see if the noise is coming from you. I somehow doubt it. Can you hear us? Are you there? Can you speak?
I hear you.
Would you like to share the question you have so that we could maybe kind of throw it out there? And
Well, the comment that I'm getting out there is more of a comment than a question, and that is having to do with what to share and how to share my experience. Because I'm very much in a time of transition. So I'm between two worlds, and I'm not really sure where I'm going to land exactly. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason why I have this hesitation, or perhaps this perfection hesitation, is that I have a sense that the people who I speak to, who are around me, are looking to me. They look to me for leadership and guidance. And if I tell them one thing and then the next month I tell them something else, well, I don't know where that leaves me in terms of their mind. So I'm kind of like right now sort of shying away from people altogether to avoid all those issues at the moment. So that's my...
Okay. So what can we help you with exactly? How to tell the story in between?
Well, I mean, I really appreciate Donna's comments. Like, it's great to share, you know, one's story and where one is, and I do take it to heart that people are not, you know, looking at us so deeply that we should be afraid, et cetera, et cetera. But I am a little bit afraid because I'm in a point of transition, like I said. And I don't feel that it's acceptable really to say I'm in transition, or,
Wordsmith.
I don't even know.
Some great words for Ken. Ken's between two jobs, between two different
Okay.
careers right now, and
Right.
you're not really sure where he's going with that, which is fine and wonderful,
Yeah.
and evolution.
Yes.
That's some words that.
Well, first my first reaction was, I remember when I was going through my transition from a full-time job to having this business. And it took me about 1.5 years, really, to get from one place to the other. And in between, I was talking to a lot of people in a business context. And I know I have a sense of what you're talking about in that I believed that people, even though I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't know what I wanted to do, I believed that I had to give an impression to people that I did, because that's how they see me. Yes, I'm always in charge. I've always been the boss. I always have the answers. And I was the person who didn't have the answers. But I believed that everyone thought I should. Well, one of the things that I realized was that it was okay not to have the answers with some people. Now, some people I never shared with until I actually came up with my solution for where I was. And I did, it wasn't that I avoided them so much as I just kind of avoided the conversation. But I think that there's, again, and I'm generalizing because I don't know your specific situation, but it is okay to say that you're in transition. And I think this is something that Randi struggled with when I first met her too, is because she was moving from one thing to another and still defining herself by the old rules, because she in the process of getting to the next place, and she didn't want people to know either, right? Yeah. She wanted to be able.
No, we just need to know this.
Yeah, yeah. It's a difficult thing, and I think it's okay to avoid the people who are not going to get it, or are really going to be looking for you to have the answers. But you can come up with language that talks about where you are in your process of moving from one place to the other. And I did it because in the end, I needed help. And I knew that if I wasn't honest with some people, I wasn't going to be able to get the help. So I had to kind of come clean. And yes, I get that if you tell people one thing now and then something changes and you're going to tell them something else. I think if you're honest as you can be, I think that's where the authenticity comes from. Is to just try to be as honest as you can be. And I know that Randi's language that she came up with in her initial bios was in her own language, because her bio doesn't have anything like that. And neither does mine. My bio has probably changed 2 or 3 times in the last 3 years. Again, because I felt I needed to say who I'd been all this time to show that I still had this authority and could be this leader, and that I kind of knew what I was doing and could still provide a lot of the same, help and service that I had been doing in the past. But I slowly just eliminated all of it.
Yeah.
Once it became clear that I had the courage to say, you know what, this is where I am. And this is what I want to do. And I had plenty of people who said to me, you're crazy. You have so much more to offer, not helpful. But fortunately, there were enough people saying.
Those are people's opinions. They don't define who we are or where we've been or where we're going. They're people just speak. They don't even know what's coming out of their mouths sometimes. It really has no bearing on your own why and your own pursuits and what's meaningful to you. Because at the end of the day, you've got you to answer to, right? That person that you had coffee with, or that you met up with at a gathering somewhere, not so much. You're not going to see them every day. It's their opinion's their opinion, but we have to answer to ourselves. And so if the answer you're giving yourself is something that sits and resonates well with you, that's a big key to it.
And one of the keys in transitioning that certainly that I was given this advice years ago and I learned the hard way is you do have to choose who you tell what to.
Mm-hmm.
You do. You have to be careful to avoid telling the very people that you know are the ones that are going to, cause you a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very selective about who I told what to. And when I work with business owners who are in between, we try to define if they want to be out in the public with what they're doing, then we have to find language that defines where they are right now, not what they aspire to. And I just was working on this last week with a client. She's in transition and she's job hunting, and she doesn't have the licenses she needs at this moment in time to get the jobs that she needs, but she wants to be able to start to be out there and put herself out there.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't lie. We couldn't lie and say she was something that she wasn't. So we had to work on language that was sort of not even aspirational, because you also don't want to say, oh, I'm just in the process of, or I'm a student.
Well, I want to be when I grow up.
I want to be when I grow up. So we worked really hard on language that just sort of said, here's who I am now. Here are the skills I have in my, education. Here's what I'm working on. And she's not sure where she's going to end up. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but
I think it's helpful.
It's helpful to me. A lot of it is. So thank you.
Great. Awesome. Anybody else? Anybody else want to be unmuted? Anything to add, to ask, to say? Anyone want to type something in? For those of you who show up as phones.
I love the phone.
The walls. Oh, yeah, I love Zoom. Hello.
There she is.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, so anything else anybody wants to add? Otherwise, we're going to go right into a wrap up. Okay, we're wrapping up. So where can you find us? Well, you always find me on my website, www.randylevincoaching.com, or at randy@randylevincoaching.com. Reach out and talk to me. Love to talk to everybody. And you're going to find me virtually in a big way. Right now, we kicked off today the Reinvention Reboot Challenge, which many, if not all of you, are on. I've got over 100 people in this group. I am so excited. There's a private Facebook page for it. If you're not on it, you can find it on my website, www.randylevincoaching.com. You can still sign up for it. It runs for the week. It started today. Very excited. It's all about what's next, changing perceptions and looking at opportunity through a little different lens. I am also going to be offering a Reinvention Summit that's going to kick off in February. Shh, I'm not telling everybody about this yet. It's a 5-week program. It is classroom setting, kind of like this is, all about reinvention, following my GPS coaching system, which is growth and purpose and solutions. It's 5 weeks, and every week we will go through a different modality, ending in a Q&A as a one-on-one coaching session and other goodies that are part of it. You'll be hearing a lot more about that as well. There is a little link on my website, so if it's something you're interested in, reach out to me now. And in person, anybody who's local to Bergen County, is a brand new, wonderful venue called the Body Image Boutique. Donna, I know you know who they are, that opened in Saddle River, and I'm going to be doing a series of workshops for them kicking off on the 5th of January, and those are all live. Kicking off with the Power of Change, What Drives You, which is my signature workshop. I'll also be doing some vision boarding there. I'll be doing a time management workshop, et cetera, through January, February, and March. So that's me. Donna, where can we find you?
I'm so easy. You can find me at openheartcreative.com. You can email me at donna@openheartcreative.com.
Awesome.
That's it.
Awesome.
And I'm also in Bergen County, and always happy to meet in person if anybody's in the.
Great. Thank you so much, Donna, for doing this with me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, anything before we kick off? Bye, guys.
Everybody.
Thanks so much for coming.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.